So if it gets violent, it's okay.
If it gets violent, yeah, it's fine.
People call these things imperfections, but they're not. Oh, that's the good stuff. And then we get to choose who we let into our weird little worlds. You're not perfect, sport. And let me save you the suspense. This girl you met, she isn't perfect either. But the question is whether or not you're perfect for each other. That's the whole deal. That's what intimacy is all about. Now, you can know everything in the world, sport, but the only way you're finding out that one is by giving it a shot. You certainly won't learn from an old fucker like me. Even if I did know, I wouldn't tell a pissant like you.
Why not? You told me every other fucking thing. Jesus Christ. Fucking talk more than any shrink I ever seen in my life.
I teach this shit. I didn't say I know how to do it.
Welcome to Between Us, a psychotherapy podcast. Who are you?
I'm Reyes.
What do you do now?
Right now, I am a psychotherapist.
Is there a particular kind of patient that you work with?
Not anymore. There used to be that earlier in my training, I was more focused on working with specific populations. Things have happened that my caseload has become quite diverse, so I can no longer identify a particular population. I just very, very recently heard somebody who I respect and has many more years than I doing this kind of work, that you get the patients that you need. You know?
Yeah. They trust the universe.
Yeah, that kind of thing. I never thought like that. I don't. My mind doesn't go. I am much more anxious.
Anxious?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There has been a parallel between the patients I get and what's happening in my life.
What do you mean?
Sometimes some fractures in my own self, or difficulties in my own life, or things that I am sorting out. Many times, I mean, not all the time, of course, but many times, I am working with somebody or with a number of people who are struggling with that kind of same fracture.
How do you attribute that phenomenon that what is happening in your life is connected in that way to what is happening in your patients' lives?
I think psychological life transcends individual mind. I do think that, that psychological life is something that we share and we embody and co-construct. And what has happened is that as I work more with people, I think I have changed with them. Almost every time I make an interpretation or provide some sort of response, I feel that there's something useful in that for me too.
Does that imply that there are unconscious or maybe conscious motivations for you in the work? I mean, you're getting something out of it. Was that part of what led you to this work in the first place? Is it related to your motivations?
I think that's a radical yes.
A radical yes.
Yeah.
You're listening to Between Us. I'm John Totten. I created this podcast with my friend Mason Neely. Our hopes for this show are to not only discuss the theory of psychotherapy, but to document some of its human stories. Stories from practitioners and patients alike. What happens in therapy? It's a big question, There are a lot of questions that come after it, and we want to try and address as many of these questions as possible. I've found over the course of my career in this field that my patients are interested as well. They want to know, how does this work? What are we like? What are our lives like? What is our psychology like? So I started asking. I started asking other therapists, past professors, people who have been doing it a long time, people who have been doing it briefly. What you're hearing is a conversation with my friend Reyes, a really gifted psychotherapist in Seattle, a dear friend and just a caring, funny, vulnerable individual. Ro grew up in Mexico City, but he let me know that alienation has not been just a geographic experience for him. It's been a psychological force that has shaped who he is.
I have had a felt sense, of alienation, from very, very early on, and so for me, studying psychology, and later becoming a therapist, I think has to do a lot with wanting to be in relationships,
What was the alienation?
The image of the anthropologist on Mars is descriptive of what I think that feeling is for me. I think as I get older, I am less inept to be with people, but I have had times of profound misunderstanding of people.
Profound misunderstanding people or being misunderstood by people.
Not understanding people has been more, and this is like a sensitive topic for me. Like not knowing what was in front of me. That's not knowing what's there, what's this. It's like,
You remember this as a child,
yeah,
frightened at what was in front of you and alienated.
yeah. Not understanding well what was going on and kind of going with that trial and error a tactic, and making a lot of mistakes, and eventually getting it right sometimes, but with a lot of with a kind of grace, a kind of relational grace that I think I've always been jealous of, and I never had. I have worked through my own alienation. I am working through it all the time. There's a sequence, you can even create a formal logic diagram, right? Like that just by the fact that we are working together, our alienation, we are no longer alienated or less alienated.
By default of being in the room together
Yes.
and being face to face, just the context of the space being filled by the two people.
Yeah, and vulnerable to each other.
The truth is that there are probably too many possible answers for what makes a therapist. One thing I do know is that the desire to help people is only a minuscule portion of the infinite motivations that drive each person into this profession. When my patients ask me why I chose this field, I often have to tell them that I don't even know where to start. The seeds of what made me a therapist are found in the most early developmental experiences, from being an oldest child on the playground chasing bullies away from my brothers, to my teenage years of intervening in my parents' arguments. Each therapist has a particular subjective experience, just like each patient does, with events and players that conspired to lead them into this practice. For Ro, it was an experience of alienation. Here he is again.
Language is the first. I think the first and most evident membrane of alienation. In my relationships with my friends, sometimes I feel the urge to show you something about me, like I want to show you this, like a toy. I want to play with John. I want to play with this. I want to show him this, But it's part of something that you don't have easy access because you don't speak my language, or you don't speak my language of origin, right? Mm-hmm. I want to share with you something that's in Spanish,
Right.
Like, hey, man, an easy example. Well, there's Star Wars. There's R2-D2, right? Well, for me, it was not R2-D2. It was Arturito. Little Arthur. Arturito.
Little Arthur.
Yes.
So that's interesting to me. I mean, you and I have a shared symbol from our earliest, most formative years. Mm-hmm. The language attached to that shared symbol carries with it absolutely different connotations and different meanings. And so you get excited to share something with me, but there's this gap. Does the opportunity for transcendence become even more meaningful and powerful?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. But seeing things like that is not readily available. I am trying to say that that pain does not have a visible component of transcendence when you're feeling it.
Right.
If that was the case, people wouldn't come to see us.
No one is sitting there in their alienation saying to themselves, "This is a great opportunity for transcendence." I think I do know what you mean. I'm getting a clearer picture for what, at least subconsciously or unconsciously, drove you to this work. And I think this is probably going to be different for everyone else, but I'm curious, in your opinion, does the mind of a therapist have a particular shape or feel to it? And if so, what makes the mind of a therapist?
The ability to think about how you're thinking. I would say it like that.
Mm-hmm. In your experience of me, what do you think makes my mind a therapist?
Your pain.
My pain. How so?
I think you're keenly aware of your pain. And others. Yeah, I think that's something that you have readily accessible.
Makes me sound like a pretty annoying person to be around.
No, well, I don't know. Not for me. I love you, so not for me. But maybe for some people.
You've been listening to the first episode of Between Us, a psychotherapy podcast. Between Us is produced by myself, John Totten, and Mason Neely. Mason also composed our music. If you like the show, find us on iTunes and subscribe, or even leave us a review. Be sure to find us on social media and tell us what you think. We're also interested in your stories of therapy. Reach out to us, let us hear from you, and take care.